Good evening, everyone. So, welcome to our monthly free Zoom in our free community. So, this is for my VIP health and wellness group. I allow the Zoom link to be shared for anyone. This is totally out there for everybody's information and to help out as much as possible. If you are already in the community, you know that the way I do this is I let people vote on what the topic is for the evening. So when it was voted on, when we talked about it in the group, it was decided that we would do the connection between the mind and the body, which is how emotions shape our physical responses sometimes. So we are definitely going to talk about all of that tonight, and we're going to talk about why that is important. And I think the good thing is we're all in a time where this is becoming much more commonplace, where it's more acceptable and people understand that this is a thing. But there are still some people in this world where it might be new to them. And so this Zoom could be the very first time that they're hearing some of that information. So again, anytime that the link goes out or you see me promote this in my wellness community, you may always pass the link on to someone else. That free community is for everyone else. I've shared this with many of you, but the goal is that we get 1,000 people in that community. So that's the goal. So you can always invite people. I think it's a great way for people to dip their foot in the pool to just see if how much they want to get into this and how much more they want to do about how they can be more healthy and have their well-being affected in a positive way. I always tell people when they're doing this that I'm okay with people taking their phones out. The reason why I do this is because even if I'm speaking at an event, I'm encouraging people not to scroll necessarily during the presentation, but to find your biggest takeaway and share it. And I use the hashtag ripple effect connection. And for those of you who don't know, that is my podcast. And the whole point of the ripple effect is what I was talking about earlier. It's that you hear something, you learn something, and then you pass it along to the next person. So if you're on Instagram or Facebook and you tag me or you do the hashtag ripple effect connection, that's how we get the message out. That's how more people learn about what's going on. For those of you who may not know me as well, I'm a health coach and a performance coach, so I work those two together. I'm also a public speaker. I'm a level 3 integrative health practitioner. I've been in the sports media world for 30 years. And then I coached also on a clinical level at Dr. Will Cole's Autoimmune Health Reset, where I helped over 300 patients with autoimmune disease over the years. I'm also a John Gordon certified public speaker. So what that means is if you've ever read any of John's books, I am now allowed to teach John's frameworks. And so I can do that through keynotes, through workshops, and it's really neat because you have the chance to positively affect organizations and also companies, schools, the whole 9 yards. So literally, there's no one you don't know that can't use something like this in the framework that it is. So sports teams, it could be a women's group, it could be a chamber of commerce event. John's message is universal. And it's definitely a message that changed my life. So I'm excited to be able to share John's work with the world, along with some of the things that I have also created for corporations. So let's get this started in the topic that you all came here to discuss. So if we are having physical symptoms, the thought process goes, we think we're broken. We feel like we've done something wrong, we've failed. But today we're going to explore how your emotions, your stress patterns, and even your thoughts can directly influence your biology. So when we're talking about what can actually cause physical symptoms, we're talking about this. And I'm going to do my best to make it not complicated. But what I always talk about is that everything can affect everything, which makes it complicated, but also simple. So the good thing is when everything affects everything, even when you're doing one thing well, it's positively affecting the other things. So that's why I choose to look at it like that in less of an overwhelming fashion, and saying that even if you can do one thing, it's going to positively affect way more than you think overall, because everything in the body is connected. So most people come to health thinking that something is wrong. But what if your body's not malfunctioning? What if it's adapting? And what if it's trying to tell you something? So if you think of symptoms more like signals, it becomes less threatening and we become already less judgmental and less critical of our own body. The brain and the body are not separate. And I think, like I said earlier, we know that now. We know that the brain and the body are inherently connected and they are also in a feedback loop. So, what I mean by a feedback loop is that one can affect the other. So, the emotional can affect the physical, but the physical can also affect the emotional. So, you get in that feedback loop. And when what you're looking for to get out of that feedback loop is something to interrupt the pattern. So, your thoughts, yes, what you think triggers chemical reactions in your body. Your emotions trigger hormones. Your stress triggers immune response. Everything you think becomes chemistry. And I know that sounds like it's not true, but it is. When the brain perceives threat, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, the hypothalamus activates, the adrenals release cortisol, your heart rate changes, your blood sugar changes, your digestion slows down, your immune function shifts. You don't even need trauma for this. A stressful email can do it. So that's not to be over dramatic. That's just for you to understand that these things do make a difference. So even something so simple as getting fired up from an email, honestly, we're talking multiple times of feeling that. I'm not telling you like one email you get fired up about that you're going to have blood sugar issues going forward. But what I'm saying is it does trigger this response. And the more we trigger that response, the more this can trickle down into the physical aspects and physical symptoms in the body. So if you're looking at this diagram, right, the nervous system has two parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So you can see here on the diagram how they're all connected, right? The sympathetic nervous system, I want you to think about that like you are running from a tiger and you want to live. So that is like your survival mechanism. That is also known as, you'll hear it referred to as fight or flight. And you will hear that. And I will tell you from being a practitioner and seeing so many clients and patients and working with so many people over the years, that many of us are stuck in fight or flight. And when we're stuck in that, I want you to envision a car. Think about taping the gas pedal down. So if you're in the car and you're driving and the gas pedal is taped down and you can't hit the brakes because that gas pedal is taped down, that's like what's going on in the body. So the parasympathetic nervous system, which is also called rest and digest, is the other side of the coin. That's the relaxation mode. And quite honestly, you would say we need both of these, right? We don't want to suppress our sympathetic nervous system completely. There are good stressors in the world. Exercise is a good stressor. Cold plunges are a stressor. So like there is such thing as good stress. It's just that when the stress button is pushed and turned on all the time, that's when we have problems. You always need the yin and the yang. So the body is looking for balance. The body's always looking for balance. So if you have way more of the sympathetic, think about it. I said the parasympathetic is called rest and digest. If you're not in this parasympathetic nervous system mode, you can't digest your food because that's where these autonomic responses that of things that your body is supposed to do automatically, that's where it would happen. So you can see that like on the charts. You can see that from saliva. So if someone says they're having dry mouth, dry eyes, like the first thing we're trying to figure out is this a nervous system response? Is it a nervous system response? Which it very well could be. So you look at the next slide and you're seeing a little bit more of this. And just here you see acute stress saves your life, right? You want to be able to respond if a tiger is chasing you. So fight or flight is brilliant. It's protective, but it's designed for short bursts, not our daily life. So that's where the problems come in. And you can see this in fight or flight, this in the stomach, it inhibits digestion. In the lungs, it would increase airflow. So think about like if you're running, right? And you're huffing and puffing, what is that doing? You're breathing heavy. You're in fight or flight, really. You're in a sympathetic nervous system state when you're trying to do that. Accelerating the heart rate. getting the heart rate down, like a simple test you can do to just see what did that email do to me when I read it. Just look down at your tracker or your watch and check your heart rate and see if your heart rate's gone up. So that's a simple way to do it. You can see the pupils. We can talk, they get dilated. We can see here in the liver. We can see also what it does to reproductive organs and sexual function. So there's many trickle downs to this. So when you're stuck in that sympathetic dominance too, understand that if you're looking at that, everything in the body is flow, blood flow, air flow, lymphatic flow. It's all, your body's made up a lot of water, which is also, by the way, I'll slide in that it's really important to drink your water for that reason, is your body's mainly made up of fluid. If we don't have flow and something gets quote unquote stuck, that is going to always trigger the nervous system. So sometimes someone will say, but I'm not stressed. And we have this way of defining stress, but we don't understand that even our thoughts are stress. So even if you're thinking something, it's stress. It doesn't have to be you throwing your hands up in the middle of traffic. There's stress on the body. If an organ or flow is blocked, then the body's going to be like, whoa, what's going on? It's going to try like heck. The primary job of the body is to keep you alive, right? So if something is constricted or not flowing, the body is like, whoa, we need to do something here. So when you think about things like that, then you understand why we have symptoms, because that is the way your body speaks to you to say, hey, something's wrong here and we need to fix it. So blood flow will slow down, thyroid will slow down, sex hormones will drop. And we see this all the time where hormones are the trickle down of a lot of this. The immune system becomes dysregulated, inflammation goes up. In a second, I'll talk about what your thoughts can do to inflammatory cytokines, which are the levels of inflammation that we all get in our body. So when you think about what symptoms people are talking about all the time, IBS, autoimmune flares, hormonal chaos, sleep disruption, anxiety, fatigue. Well, it's not that you're weak, you're just wired for survival. So we're going to talk about more about the things that keep you stuck. If you listen to my podcast, the entire theme of season 3 is what keeps us stuck. And we are always talking about looking where people don't look. So the people I follow, the people I know, it's not always going to be where the symptom is or where the point of pain is. It's sometimes coming from somewhere else. So you're like, well, what do I do? How do I know? You know, it sometimes really requires an honest assessment of your life, what you're thinking, what those thought patterns are. The most I see, I would say that one of the biggest things I see is that people have like really bad anxiety or depression. And so when we look at like things like anxiety and depression, okay, do you know that having a nutrient deficiency could cause anxiety? Do you know that having low blood sugar or huge fluctuations in blood sugar can cause anxiety? So at the end of the day, sometimes like we're trying to pinpoint what could be the source of this. And then you're trying to replenish the nutrients. Sometimes there's mineral deficiencies that also cause issues like high blood pressure. One of the biggest things we'll see is there's a mineral deficiency. But again, on the surface, you don't think of that as stress, but that is stress on your body. So if your body's not equipped with the tools it needs to do its job, that's a stressful situation. So sometimes, like, we're talking about doing things that are so simple that they sound ridiculous because they're so simple. But when I'm saying, like, okay, well, let's see what happens when you drink the water you're supposed to drink. Or let's see what happens when we can do a pinch of sea salt and lemon in your water and you get some electrolytes and you get some real minerals. That can totally slow down those kinds of symptoms. A lot of times, anxiety, sleep issues can also come from the fact that there's a gut issue at the heart of it. Serotonin is made in the gut. So if there's a gut issue, then maybe that's causing your depression or your sleep issues. And so, what happens when you can't sleep? Or what happens when you have digestive issues? You get more stressed, right, about those issues. And now we're in a feedback loop where we don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. So we just know then we have to work on both things. So when you look at this, it starts to make sense. And then you're looking at the spine. And this is why I'm big on chiropractic. Chiropractic is help restoring the signaling in your body, right? So every part of the cervical to the thoracic spine to the lumbar spine, they are all connected to organs. So when the signals are not getting where they're supposed to do, and so if we're talking about what do we do when we're stuck, the signals aren't getting where they're supposed to do, that can cause misfunctions also. Now, when we go to think about emotion, that it is not just a feeling, it's a full body physiological response. So, what do I mean? And everyone knows when I say these, they're going to know what I'm talking about. Anger raises blood pressure, no doubt. And you've seen someone, right, that gets really, really angry and their face gets really, really red. What's happening when that happens? That's blood rushing there, right? That's blood pressure going up. Shame increases cortisol. Loneliness increases inflammatory markers. Gratitude increases something called vagal tone, which we'll talk about in a second, and why I'm so big on the vagus nerve and how important it is in the body. It's the largest nerve in your body, and it controls a lot. It's a sympathetic nervous system nerve, but it controls so many functions in the body. And it's why I think the vagus nerve is always one of the places that I'm starting with someone who is overwhelmed, stressed, has anxiety, has depression. We can sometimes get places just by helping that vagal tone. Stress, this is one I see all the time. Stress impairs stomach acid. And you go to the doctor and you tell the doctor you have acid reflux. And it's really low stomach acid and not high stomach acid. And so we're in this world where everyone's on PPIs, and PPIs we're not supposed to be taking for more than 14 days, and people are on them for years. And the downsides of the being on the PPIs are, one, your digestion's not working like it normally should because you need stomach acid. When you don't have stomach acid, it becomes a free-for-all in your gut. It allows bacteria to overgrow, good and bad. It's a free-for-all in there. It's like a party because there's no control in the environment. It's like being at a bar and not having a bouncer, right? It's just a free-for-all in there. Anybody can get in, anybody can multiply. It becomes an issue. So that's why stomach acid is really, really important. So I'm big on that. If you don't have stomach acid, you can't start the second part of your digestion. But the vagus nerve is connected to stomach acid. And when I go to practitioners that I work with and they work on the vagus nerve, I will hear like the gurgling and all that. That is just that is the vagus nerve working and the body just restoring that normal stomach acid. So that sometimes is like a big light bulb moment for people. The doctors can only do what they're taught, right? And they're taught, someone comes in with acid reflux, we give them omeprazole and we send them on their way. But that's really not addressing the root cause of it. Okay. And so if the root cause is that you're the CEO of a company, which we will see all the time, the CEO or the person that's in charge of the company is super stressed and everything is high octane. They don't have an off switch, and they will be your classic case of someone who has low stomach acid. And the first thing we'll ask is, do you have any acid reflux? And they're like, oh, all the time, but I take a PPI. And you're like, well, it's the stress is causing that low stomach acid, and it's really just the acids coming up, but you need that acid. So it is a little bit of a teaching moment when we can get them to think about how they can restore that. And sometimes when you get them off the PPI, and like we don't do that, they have to, anybody has to make a choice to get off of a prescription drug or even an over-the-counter drug. I can't make that decision for people. I can just tell them, if you would like to get off of that, here's what you can do. But you do have to control your thoughts too. So that's part of it, is the emotions and what you do to combat stress. Chronic stress raises interleukin 6 and CRP. So if you go get your blood work done, it depends on your doctors. Some doctors do run CRP, and that is a inflammatory marker, but interleukin 6 is the big one that isn't really tested, but that we see all the time in a lot of people. Did you know that loneliness is linked to higher mortality rates? Optimism is linked to a longer lifespan. It is. And it's one of the reasons why I'm big on the positivity messages that even I was talking about with John. And if you asked me what were the biggest things I've learned in my journey, the biggest needle movers, I would tell you that the emotion connection to physical health was a big light bulb moment for me. I would also tell you that one of the first things I knew I had to change, and I was already in the process of changing this before I got diagnosed, which is a blessing, and where my energy bus story comes in about John's book. And I always say John's book changed my life, because when I read that book, I knew like this is something I need to get better at just in life. And then it just happens to come at a time when I'm diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And that's just when you need it the most. So, depending on what you believe, and you believe in a higher power, if God puts these things in our place when we need them the most. And I don't think anything happens by accident, but I would tell you that out of my journey, what has kept me symptom free and kept me from having any more issues with related to multiple sclerosis, what's kept me from having medication? Yeah, sure. Nutrition, supplements, moving my body, 100%, sleep. Those have all been big factors. But the biggest needle mover is the mindset, 100%. I don't do less now than I did before. I probably do more, but I have these non-negotiables I do every day. So I have the capacity to do them. So meaning my sleep, my nutrition, my movement, my thoughts. Those are the things I can control. And those are the things that I focused on when I got sick. And those are the things that have moved the needle. So this message and the group voting on this and this becoming the topic this month, I think it's so great, because I think that the results can be profound. I think you are what you create. And I think sometimes we get stuck in thought patterns that don't serve us. And that's not shameful. That happens to everybody. And it doesn't mean because you start looking more into positivity and trying to break yourself of this pattern that everything's perfect either. It doesn't mean you don't ever have a negative thought. It just means you're able to kind of reframe and refocus pretty quickly. You could look at things two different ways, through two different lenses, the same situation. If you ever read The Energy Bus, the story in The Energy Bus is that George, who was going to work, George was having all these things happening to him that weren't good for him. He was having issues with his wife. He was working a lot. His workers were not, there wasn't a good culture going on there. And then George is on his way to work, and George gets a flat tire, and George thinks this is the end of the world. But at the end of the day, George got that flat tire, and when he got that flat tire and they checked his car was supposed to be in for a recall, and he didn't pay attention to the letter, and the car had bad brakes. And so if George would have driven that car, it was only a matter of time before the brakes would have given out had he not gotten it fixed. Well, instead of George thinking of how grateful and gratitude for that intervention in that moment, George couldn't see the positives of it, couldn't see it, couldn't see what was good about that, just saw the mayhem that was around him. And that's where the energy bus and the rules that come in after that, where they come in and reframed how he thinks and how he looks at things. So like there's two lenses you could look at, like, oh my God, I'm not going to get to work on time. I got to take the bus. I can't take my car. Right? You can look at it two ways, or you could look at it like, this may have saved my life, and so it's a lot of things are the lens that we look at things through. Now what you're looking through here, and again, I hesitated to put this in because I don't want to get too technical with people, but the HPA axis is your stress command center. So it's the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis. And so you'll hear that someone has dysfunction in this. And if you're having dysfunction in this, it is a trickle down from the mind to the actual hypothalamus, which can affect your immune system, to the adrenals where they produce cortisol. And so I can speak as someone who will tell you that when my stress response was so poor, I had a backwards cortisol curve. Now, what that means is your cortisol is supposed to look like this. It's supposed to go up in the morning like that, slowly kind of go down. And then as like nighttime falls, we start to make more melatonin. Cortisol should be going down. So when it's close to bedtime, that cortisol is very low. Okay? Mine was the opposite. I was low in the morning and then I was high at night. And that is not what you want. And that is a HPA axis problem. So a lot of people do have that. If you're wired and tired, or you have a hard time going to sleep, or you feel like you're really sluggish in the morning, that tends to be what's going on there. If we produce cortisol, that high cortisol, like at night, then we're not going to produce the melatonin that we need to go to sleep. And so the person will be high cortisol, low melatonin. Something else I get into that can be stress, that I get into a lot in the blood sugar reset, and how this can cause a physical response. But imagine the lights in your living room causing high cortisol. When we put blue light in our eyes, that signals to our body. Our body thinks it's morning time and it's time to get up, because the blue light that we get in the morning is from the sun. It's mixed with other frequencies in the spectrum. We never from the sun get just blue light. So that's the danger of screens. Like right now, I have my screen on, but I have a screen modulator on that goes by the time of the day. So the colors are changing by the time of the day. So I'm not getting that damaging light in my eyes. And I also have glasses that protect me. So I'm not getting that light in my eyes. So yes, you're like, well, this is about emotional health and physical health. But what I'm saying is, this is how you create that feedback loop. That's why you're having these racing thoughts sometimes at night, and sometimes you can't sleep. So again, when you're looking at the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, the adrenals, and the cortisol relationship, I would say just about like every autoimmune patient that I've seen labs for, I really always see a dysregulation in this. There's some kind of dysregulation that has to do with this. This is, because it's your central command center, your brain perceives the stress, right? The hypothalamus then sends a signal, and then the pituitary amplifies it. And then it's the adrenals that will release the cortisol. Cortisol's not bad, it's essential, but you don't want it at the wrong time. Everything I just mentioned regulates blood sugar, blood pressure, inflammation, energy. Cortisol is designed to spike, though, and come back down. It's not designed to stay up here all the time. It's not designed to be down here all the time. So that's where I'm talking about. Your body always craves balance. It wants the yin and the yang. When stress becomes chronic, that is when this becomes dysregulated. What does that look like? Poor sleep, anxiety, elevated evening cortisol, blood sugar instability. We'll see it with blood sugar issues, hormonal imbalance, fatigue. And over time, that feedback loop will weaken. And instead of the stress, the spike, and recover, we get stress, spike, partial recovery, repeat, and then it's really dysregulated. And if emotional stress is constant, and if you've got emotions going on top of that, the HPA axis never fully resets. Never fully resets. And we'll see that. And this is how emotional patterns then turn into endocrine patterns. And then we get hormone dysregulation. So that's why hormones are usually the result of something. They're never the cause. You don't see hormones being the cause. They are the downstream result of something else that's going on. So I thought I'd mix in for you just a couple of like action steps that people could take. I mixed some of that into this presentation so that there are some simple things you can do. I don't expect you to do all of these. And I always tell people, even if you take one thing, that's why when I say, if you tag me on social media, you put one takeaway from today. That's it. Even if you just took one thing away from today, I feel like it's a win. Okay. But these are some cortisol stabilizers. No phone 60 minutes before bed. And if you use a phone in the evening, like sometimes with me, like I get pinged sometimes because I'm a guest booker for SiriusXM also on top of this, I will get a ping late at night, 9:30, 10 o'clock. That's about a guest. But what I do is I turn my phone red. I have a red screen so that if I look at my phone, I'm not getting any blue light from it. And then I will also have my, um, I change the lenses on these glasses as the night gets later so that by the time I go to sleep at night, right before that for about an hour, I've got no green or blue light going into my eyes. So this can be really impactful. Just dimming the lights or changing, LEDs, not the greatest. Fluorescent lights are horrific for light sensitivity, but if you can just dim the lights and eliminate the blue lights, and then the biggest thing is always get your morning sunlight when you first get up. If you can get it within 20 minutes of waking, just going outside and get, I don't know, whatever you have time for, 5 to 10 minutes of sunlight in your eyes. Doesn't count through a window. You want to get outside and get that light. Like that's very impactful for resetting this system. So if you think about someone who checks their email before bed and then they're up at 3 a.m. and feels wired but exhausted, that's usually cortisol being mistimed. So tonight, maybe try one of those, or tomorrow morning if you want to try it and just see if you get any difference. I'm not going to say it always happens in one time. I think it's something that definitely doesn't happen. It's not created overnight, so it doesn't always rectify overnight. But if you can get some consistency with a couple of these things, you will see a difference. I think the glasses for me made a huge difference in my sleep. And my sleep is one of those non-negotiables every day. Now, why again, I'm going to go back to again what we're saying and what we're thinking. Neural pathways strengthen with repetition. So we have this wonderful thing called neuroplasticity, but it's got two sides to it. Neuroplasticity has two sides to it. It's good and it's bad. And it depends on what you're trying to do, because it can be really, really good. But if you're stuck in these negative thought patterns, it can also be detrimental. So the body doesn't know the difference between an imagined threat and a real threat. So if your thoughts are threatening, your body doesn't know. A lot of times the stress that we have is based on something that happened in the past or something that we think might happen in the future. It's usually rooted in fear or uncertainty, and very few times does it have a lot to do with the actual present. So when you think about that, if you can stop that pattern, that's a big deal for what you're doing in the present. Because usually the way you're thinking about it is something that's not in your control, which is what also makes it stressful. Because if it's in the past, you can't change it. If it's in the future, you can't control it yet, right? You can only deal with the present. So chronic internal pressure equals chronic stress chemistry. And then we'll hear a lot of times from people that there's a genetic component to everything. Well, genetics loads the gun, but your environment always pulls the trigger. So just because you have a genetic predisposition for something doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen. So we are what we create. And do your thoughts. This is the question I would ask yourself when you're feeling stress. Like you're saying these things: I'm behind, I'm failing, I'm not safe, I can't handle this. I hear I have no time, I have no money. Like a lot of times it doesn't match our reality and there's a disconnect. So sometimes one of the ways you can kind of just stop yourself in your tracks is to give it that question: is this real? Is this really that stressful? Or am I creating that stress? Right? If you're being chased by a tiger, I have news for you. That's really stressful. You should be in the sympathetic nervous system dominance, right? But, you know, I'm behind. I have an accountant right now who's one of my clients. And I mean, she is telling herself some stories based on past years, but the story is not based on her actual performance because she's done taxes, she's been an accountant for years and done it successfully. But that's not what she sees. She sees shortcomings from the past, and then she's worried about what she's doing in the future. And in the present, she can't get through the anxiety. And a good story about this client was this client came to me with some pretty significant panic attacks and anxiety. And when we got her nutrition dialed in, because she had just been pregnant and she had just been breastfeeding, and I knew right away there was likely a blood sugar issue, but also knew that she needed nutrients in her body. Like her body just didn't have it was depleted because she had given so much for her baby, for all that time. So great part of the story is 1 month in, she's doing amazing. She's doing amazing and she's in the middle of her busiest season. And she's been texting me like these affirmations that she's been using that we talked about. And I mean, so this is what I'm saying. Like, this is someone who is having outward panic attacks. And it came down to a nutrient deficiency. It came down to her thought patterns from some past traumas. It really had nothing to do with her reality and in the present. It had to do with things that happened in the past and her fear about what happens in the future. So it can be done. And look, I'm not saying, I want you to understand, I'm not oversimplifying. If someone has some people have more to get through and process than others. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm minimizing those people. And it's so easy. You can just say to yourself, I'm good today and everything's hunky dory. So I want to be respectful of the people that are doing the heavy duty work and just understand that in time, this all changes, but this is part of it. And sometimes this is just the first step that you take, right? And sometimes you do have to go deeper. So you just want your thoughts to match your reality. And a lot of times there's a disconnect there. They're not just psychological. Um, so brain rewiring is big. And that is also, by the way, why some people have some significant traumas from their childhood that they have to process, is because you had those things happen to you when you were a child, when you were at the height of neuroplasticity. So there's certain times of our life we have more ability to create our neuroplasticity than others. And I want to say it's between the ages of 7 and 13. That's significant. And if I don't have time to go into what this is, but if you want to look it up, you can. If you do something called the emotion code and the body code, and a practitioner works on you, you will see things come up all the time in your past. And this practitioner knows nothing about you, but they know things happened between it's amazing how many times something happens between the ages of 7 and 13 that is stuck with someone for years. So you can have these unprocessed emotions in your body that can turn into more. And we'll get into that in a second. But I want to talk about the vagus nerve really quick. The vagus nerve, so I want you to just, if you can see me, the vagus nerve, there are two. There's a left and a right. It is the largest cranial nerve in your body. It's also known as cranial nerve number 10. Okay. The vagus nerve starts up here. It goes down here through the collarbone, right? It goes down then through the diaphragm and into the stomach. Okay. So the vagus nerve, that's why it's huge for digestion and huge for your sympathetic nervous system, because it's going through the areas of the spine where the sympathetic nervous system is housed, right? And this is a parasympathetic nerve. You want it to be working, okay? So you want to, what we call increase vagal tone, means you have more tolerance and more resilience for stress. Okay. A lot of people, you'll see they measure HRV. And a lot of times HRV is, although we don't measure it properly, and that's another story for another day, but the correct way to really truly know your HRV is to have a heart rate strap. And obviously most of us are using trackers on our wrist. It's not always the most accurate thing. So I always tell people, like, just see if it's going up or down, but don't put so much stock on what the actual number is. And heart rate variability is a number of heart rate. It's the time between beats of your heart. So obviously you want that longer, because that means larger number. Larger number means you're more relaxed. So when you look at the vagus nerve and how it starts in the brainstem, I will tell you one thing. This is why this was big for me. I had a upper cervical issue up here, which is the atlas and this bone. And when the atlas slides out, it was affecting my vagus nerve. It was pinching my vagus nerve. So it was keeping me in fight or flight without me having any outward stress, but it was keeping my body in that sympathetic state. So if you're pinching the vagus nerve anywhere, especially through postural things, which I'll talk about in a second, this can keep you stuck in fight or flight and cause some symptoms downstream. High blood pressure, high heart rate, right? That's not real. That's happening because the vagus nerve is pinched. So it's begins in that brainstem down through your heart, your lungs, your diaphragm, your digestive organs. So about 80% of its fibers carry information from the body back to the brain. So this nerve is critical. So that means your body is constantly telling your brain whether you're safe or not. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to think about stress a little bit differently. So forget the people that we know are outwardly stressed every single day and everything's a 5 alarm fire because there's a lot of pressure and we're cramming so much into the day and we have distractions to deal with. We can't focus. Forget about those people right now and think about the people that can have the stress like this that they don't even really necessarily know about. So when that vagal tone is strong, the heart rate variability improves, our digestion starts functioning better, inflammation goes down, our mood stabilizes, the immune system regulates. When it's suppressed, it's the opposite. We stay in fight or flight, our muscles are tense. That's another great way to check whether or not you have some stress going on. A body scan. If you ever do a body scan and you just like, I can feel like you can feel it. You're like, all of a sudden you start the body scan and you're like, oh, I didn't know I was holding tension in my jaw. I see it all the time, the tension in the jaw. The tension in the jaw tends to happen too as we get older. But our breath will become shallow. Our pain sensitivity will increase. Just the healing in the body overall slows. So the vagus nerve is essentially your safety wiring. And here's the empowering part, though. We can influence it, and fairly simply. And I just like even just breathing in for 4 and exhaling for 6. Imagine if that could make us feel better by itself. So like when I go into these companies and I'm talking to their employees about what these employees can do on a day-to-day basis to increase their focus, resilience, and energy. And I'm telling them that all they have to do is a few times a day, do some of this breathing. Well, that's pretty darn simple. Like, that's almost so easy you can't say no to it. And that's the goal, right? So if you feel yourself getting agitated or fired up, or you get that email that agitates you, what if you pause? And what if you did breathe in for 4, out for 6? Imagine if that could just calm you down right away to get you out of that state. So the other thing that we'll talk about again in a second is the postural shifts. The other thing you can do, humming or vocalizing, meaning singing. Singing is really good. So if you want to have a dance party in the kitchen, I welcome it. Somatic release, you're moving your body, you're maybe humming, you may be singing, you're working on your vagus nerve at the same time. Cold exposure. Social connection, by the way, can help your vagus nerve. Social connection, not connected to a device. Feeling emotionally supported. What causes vagus nerve issues? That it's a physical, chemical, emotional reaction. You'll hear people have dysautonomia, like I mentioned earlier. Upper cervical instability is a big one. Gut inflammation and tension choke points. Those can all affect the vagus nerve. Now, when we're talking about tension choke points, this is what I'm talking about. Okay. And if you think about what I said, the body is flow, air, lymphatics, blood, it's all got to flow. So you tell me, when you look at this picture, is blood, air, lymphatic fluid going to get where it needs to get in this position comfortably? Like, there's no way. There's no way. So I think posture is another huge reason why people are stuck in fight or flight. When you look at the posture, the pinch points of the vagus nerve, the critical areas are right where the pinch points are when you have tech neck or forward head position. So that's the cranial, the upper cervical spine, like I was saying, where the atlas is. That's spot number one. Spot number two would be right here in the shoulder blades, about thoracic 1, thoracic 2. Another huge pinch point for forward head position. Okay. Now you tell me, if you just ate and you're sitting like that, how do you think digestion works better sitting like that, or if you got up and took a walk? So I think sometimes, like, we don't really think about something like this having such downstream effects. But again, I'm going into a company and I'm saying, and every hour or hour and a half, I want you to get up. Just get up and move. Do 10 jumping jacks, 10 air squats, take a break, right? It's going to be good for your focus, good for your movement, and really good for your posture and your vagus nerve. Certainly is super important to make sure that you have the proper postural setup at a desk. And desk jobs are killing people when it comes to this. I had a guy yesterday I had a conversation with, and he was like, "Oh, that's me. Like, I sit at a desk for 8 hours and I work from home and no one bothers me and I get locked in." And like, that's the thing, right? This is, you're basically inhibiting a communication pathway. So we can get stuck in an emotional pattern that causes emotional responses because the vagus nerve is pinched because of the way we're sitting. So imagine that. It's the main communication pathway between your brain and your body. So it's kind of important. It's kind of important. Your posture, when your head is forward, your shoulders are rounded, your chest is compressed, your diaphragm's restricted, you reduce diaphragmatic breathing, you reduce vagal stimulation, and you reinforce shallow stress breathing. The body interprets collapse as protection. Protective posture equals potential threat. But when you sit upright and your chest is open, like, what if I get up and I stretch and my chest is open and my chin is up, right? And the diaphragm is free to move and you're actually breathing properly from the diaphragm, like you're doing diaphragmatic breathing and not chest breathing. You increase vagal signaling. You're literally sending a message to your body: we are safe. So this is why this is important. So sometimes we think we're emotionally stuck, but also we're physically reinforcing the stress through our posture and our breath. So not only are we running around like mad people trying to do 50 things, we're also keeping ourselves in fight or flight because of the way how much we're sitting. So it's modifiable though. Again, this is what the good news is, right? We see this. Did you see this stat? Forward head carriage reduces vital capacity by 1/3. So if you're the person that's got the forward head position and the shoulders rounded, you're going to have shoulder issues, you're going to have elbow issues, you're going to have neck issues, and you're going to have vagus nerve issues. So sometimes the fastest way to change your state can be just to change your posture and your breath. So imagine that, right? If the vital capacity, just so you know what the vital capacity is, I should have explained that. Vital capacity is the total volume of air that can be displaced from the lungs by maximal expiratory effort, which means like you're reducing the air that can come in and out. So it is a really big deal, and I do think it's profound because I do think, I'm not saying it's the only reason people are stuck in fight or flight. I think it exacerbates the problem. Now, here's your action steps for this, because again, I think this is so important. We talked about the breath work: inhale for 4, exhale for 6. Lengthen the back of your neck. I mean, just working on chest opening. Like if you're taking a break, let's just say you have a desk job, get up every hour and just stretch like this. Just stretch it out. Okay. Stretch it out, lift your sternum. Try see if you can do that 3 times tomorrow or today if you have time tonight. Just try and see how that works. Okay. That's something simple. Pain is protective. Pain is a signal. That's from Dr. Perry Nicholson, who I learn a great deal from. Okay. The pain is rarely where we think it is. So if you see here, this is our body ecosystem. It's all connected. Right. So see these petals of the flower? They all have different areas in it. And I show this to clients so they understand. Do you see what number 1 is? It's the brain. So let's just say you come to us with back issues. That means you're in number 8. right? Petal of the flower number 8. If petal of the flower number 8 has been an issue for 12 weeks or more, meaning you've been treating the site of pain for 12 weeks or more, and it's not getting better, that's not where the problem is. Okay. Now, when 8 is doing that, 1 through 6 or 1 through 7 is a real mess. Okay. But that can be super overwhelming. But if we start here and we work on the brain and vagus nerve and we work on lymphatics, it will automatically help 3 through 7. So again, I said earlier, everything's connected. That's the good news and the bad news, because it could be really complicated. You come here and you're like, I have pain in my arm and I can't get rid of it, and there's no structural damage and I don't know what it is and I can't get rid of it. That's not where the pain is. But if I told you that you had to fix all of these, it could be overwhelming. But if I told you you only have to start here, and then all of this is going to start getting better. So this is just to show you that the body is inherently connected. It is an ecosystem, which means everything affects everything, and anything can cause anything. So it's a good and bad. It's a good and bad thing. And then here, pain is processed in the brain, and stress lowers pain threshold. Muscle guarding becomes chronic. So when you're muscle guarding and you're tense like that, that's going to cause issues too. That's going to cause long-term pain. Unprocessed emotions can keep the system activated. It can also keep that stress in the muscles or the fascia. The fascia would be a whole nother Zoom to explain, but the fascia is a big deal, and that is a lot of times where this is stored. And I'm going to talk about this, but I don't. What I always hesitate when I talk about TMS. TMS was on Dr. Perry's thing in the first thing. TMS is something that John Sarno's work talks about. And if you read John Sarno's book, he's the original person who did all this research and came up with it. And it's now currently carried on by someone named Nicole Sachs. I always hesitate to say this because I don't want anyone to think that we're saying you're making up the pain. I know I had this for a time. And the reason why I know is because when I studied it, I just went, holy cow, this happened to me. You would have this severe pain in certain parts of your body, okay? And when you go to get it checked, they x-ray it, they image it, they check it, and there's nothing wrong. It could be this. That doesn't mean every pain that someone gets is this. But sometimes it's the brain can create pain without real structural damage. And so sometimes if that's the case and you've gotten everything checked out, this is something we have to think about. A lot of times this stems from anger, from something that happened in the past that you're holding on to. And sometimes it's as simply what Nicole Sachs does. Her book is called Mind Your Body. It talks about angry journaling. And angry journaling is like your way to process and acknowledge that you're angry over something, and it just allows you to get it out, and then it frees you of it. And the stories of people who have gone through this and done on the surface some pretty simple things relative to like a surgery or something else, it's profound. But I just want you to know that when you have these pains, it does not mean that you're making it up. That's not what this means. You feel it because you're getting that signal from the brain, but the nervous system then amplifies it, and then it can become chronic. So it can happen and manifest in musculoskeletal pain, especially when imaging doesn't match that. And while we now understand the mechanism more clearly through neuroscience, the core idea holds that the brain can amplify pain when it perceives danger. So that's kind of what I'm saying. And then what Sarno suggested is that chronic pain, and I will tell you the places that it's usually found, it's back, neck, and limbs. That's usually, so the back pain that people have, the neck pain, that's me, right? My neck pain doesn't match what's on the image. Degenerative discs, arthritis are part of life. It should not be causing significant pain by itself. So it often stems from the mind repressing subconscious emotions like rage or anxiety that causes mild oxygen deprivation in the tissue. And the treatment for this will focus on just on the knowledge of it, overcoming fear, and psychological approaches rather than surgery or physical therapy. And the results are profound. And again, I'm not telling you that everything is this, but sometimes when you can't find the root of something, you got to look for and you don't see the obvious, you got to look somewhere else. And there's always hope for that. There's always someplace else to look that we can get you feeling better. The nervous system can't tell the difference between physical and emotional danger. It can't. You could be scared from a movie and your nervous system doesn't know if you're really chased by Freddy Krueger or that you're watching it on TV. Your nervous system just knows you're scared, right? So I want to connect something really important here before I conclude, but your brain has done this one primary job, which was detect threat. It does not categorize threat as, oh, this is emotional. Oh, this is physical. Oh, this is relational. Threat is threat. Rejection, threat. Criticism, threat. Falling out of control, threat. Loss, grief, threat. And when the brain detects threat, it activates protection. So that's as simple as I could make it. It looks like muscle tension, increased inflammation, altered digestion, hormone shifts, pain sensitivity. So if the nervous system feels chronically unsafe, it can increase pain perception just to get your attention. It's really just trying to get your attention and not because the tissue is necessarily damaged. So again, the good news with that is there's a lot of good news there, right? That's not a surgery. That's not a difficult, I'm not saying the emotional stuff's not difficult, but it doesn't require $20,000 surgeries, right? Pain is not just a tissue problem, it's a nervous system decision sometimes. So that's kind of the simple way to put it, but I want you to think about this too, is what is my body trying to tell me when you have a symptom? Right? What is my body trying to tell? It's like cravings. Your body's trying to tell you something when you have a craving. It's a nutrient deficiency, an emotional deficiency, or a psychological deficiency. Why does someone crave chocolate? It's magnesium. Maybe they're mineral deficient, or maybe they're lacking love in their life, you know? So that's why I always want you to think about asking, what is my body? Work with your body, not against it. It's really doing its best to try to keep you alive. So choose one of these daily safety signals. This is another thing you can do. That, again, I'm big on breathing. Breath work is powerful. If you listen to the latest episode of the podcast, you can really understand how profound breath work is. A walk after dinner, a boundary conversation that can create safety too. Tech-free time, I'm big on that, having some tech-free time. And then sunlight in the morning, we talked about that already. So there's some ideas for you. Does anyone have any questions about any of this? Did I confuse anyone? Because there's lots of ways to get deep in the weeds. Like I could do an entire Zoom on just the vagus nerve, but I'm trying to give people some surface things to think about of why they might be having the symptoms that they're having or feeling the emotions they're having. If they feel like they're out of control and the emotions are being affected by something going on physical, well, that's got to be addressed too, right? So if you're feeling like out of control and you don't know why, there's a physical root to that probably, but it's connected again. So it's what came first, the chicken or the egg? So it's two things that have to be, when it's multifactorial, we usually address both things that it could be. And then I really do believe in chiropractors. And look, I'm not telling you that you can get someone who's not good at their job in any field, right? If you're near me in Orlando, or in Winter Garden, like I've got great ones here. I know some other people on the call have great ones. Not everyone does. Definitely see who people recommend. And upper cervical chiropractors are different than regular chiropractors. And if you ever want to hear more of that, my podcast has some episodes on that. So you can, a lot of what I'm saying is in season 3, all over it. We talk about all these topics way more in depth. So if you want more, then that's where you go. Now, if you guys have a question, just unmute or let me know, or else I'm just going to finish off the rest of it. But if you have a question, somebody just interrupted me. This is the thing. I have this, like I said earlier, this goal to grow my free community. So if someone's watching this on tape or on video, I say tape, I'm old school, on video, you can use this QR code to join my free Facebook community. I always tell people, free Facebook community is the way to dip your foot in the pool. It's not overwhelming. It's little bits and pieces of things. You get some good discounts. I share when products go on sale. I share what I'm doing. I share what's going on in the wellness world, my opinions on that. I share the podcast. So it's very light. That and my email list that you can subscribe to by going to my website, which is christyhugic.com. You can subscribe to my email list. That's really simple too. It's once a month. I cannot control how it's delivered, which is frustrating. Sometimes it gets delivered to people, sometimes it doesn't, but I do have instructions inside the free community of how to make it deliverable for you so that it doesn't go to your junk or your trash. Now, the next step, if you're wanting more conversations like this, more talk about what's going on in the health world, more talk about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, that is continued empowerment. This is a subscription-based community. Right now, I'm doing it for 50% off. I'm calling everyone that comes in now a founding member. Inside this community, you get exclusive videos that I don't give anywhere else, blog posts, robust referral rewards, coaching discounts, meaning if you ever need an appointment. So a lot of my clients, this is the place that I put them in to be further supported after we've done a program so that they can still contact me and I can still help them through it, because this is a lifelong journey, not a 4-month process. So that is just somewhere where I can be there for them and they can be there at a deeper level. Coaching discounts, meaning you get a discount on every appointment that you need on top of being in there. And then the monthly community Zoom, which we do once a month. The more people we get in there, the more I'm going to be able to bring guests in. I'm not going to bring guests in until I get my attendance up in this, because I'm bringing in some people who, I want them to see that people are participating if they make the time to do it. So when we get more people in the community, so you're welcome to share this with people. Help me reach my goal. 1,000 people in that community this year. 1,000. So anybody who wants to dip their foot in the pool, it's a really simple and easy way. You'll be able to vote on next month's Zoom in the free Zoom. And then I'll see my people in continued empowerment. They get the free Zooms in here and the Zooms in continued empowerment. And that's it. Does anyone have anything? Any other questions? Apologize for going a few minutes over. All right. Well, thank you all for coming out for this, and I appreciate it. If you have any questions about anything, please let me know. I will be sharing the recording. I know a lot of people, I can never find the right time to do it. Everybody's got a lot going on, but I will share the recording inside of the community and through an email. And thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Christy.